Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com. Joining us now, the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football and TexasFootball.com, Travis Stewart. How you doing, Travis?
I'm good. How are you, bud?
Doing very well. Thanks for coming on with us, as you do every week. Excited to talk to you. I heard some pundits last night on one of these mini roundtable discussions that you see on all the different sports networks, and a comment was made, and it was concerning Mack Brown, that in this era of college football, the CEO type of coach just doesn't work anymore. And I got to looking at the top 10, and you don't find a lot of these CEO types that just hire an offensive and defensive coordinator and just kind of oversee the program now. Do you agree with that or disagree?
Well, I think there's not very many examples of those guys left. I think a lot of programs are chasing a guy whose X's and O's are largely impeccable or who has a system in place across all spectrums that's proven very successful. I think we can all agree that right now, Nick Saban would be at the front of the coaching landscape for a lot of different reasons, but one of which, he's also got an exceptionally good recruiting system. He's very intense into his X's and O's. He's very, very hands-on. That just happens to be the popular model, and so we all know that college football, maybe more than anything else outside of NFL football, is a copycat sport. And so teams and programs always want to take what they see in a winner and try and emulate that as best they can. So as you see guys like Nick Saban, specifically coming to the forefront, everyone else is going to try and duplicate that. That does not work in Mack's favor. I mean, we talk about it in generalities. Mack obviously knows more about football than you and I together will ever know in our lives, but that does not mean necessarily that he is an exceptionally good X's and O's coach. I don't have a problem with the CEO hiring style. That's fine. And at a big program like Texas, where you have the Longhorn Network, I mean, essentially you're essentially sharing a seat with a media partner, which is very odd. There is a lot of reasons why being a CEO of a program like that works. Unfortunately, if your coordinators don't deliver and you hire those guys, that's going to fall on you. No one can yell at you if you hire a defense coordinator to run everything defense related and the defensive fails, except you hire the guy. So at the end, the buck will still stop with Mack. And, well, I still think the jury could be out on both of these coordinators who are, I mean, they're still young in their tenure at Texas, as long as we're not talking specific, a live day-to-day mentality. But in the end, those hires do come back to Mack. And if his hiring of coordinators is faulty or not working, then he's not a good CEO, which is something we haven't said in a long time.
Do you think there is something intrinsically wrong with the Texas program? Because when you look at the greatest years of success under Mack, it was when he had basically a one-man show on offense, and that was either Vince Young or Colt McCoy. Those were the salad days for Mack Brown here in the last 10 years. And now you see where he's trying to shift it. And year after year, the recruiting ratings say he is getting the best players in Texas, and then everybody else is left to get the rest. You ought to be doing better than he's doing against Oklahoma if that's true. What's your take on this situation?
Excuse me, one thing I haven't heard a lot of people talk about last year, the year before that, and even this year is there is a reason why nothing lasts forever. The Roman Empire once crumbled too, and I think the reason why is success can only be sustained for so long before the expectation for success becomes too overwhelming to even support. To point, a lot of the kids that Texas is bringing in right now, they grew up watching Texas be, insanely over-the-top successful. And it's difficult to not expect that level of success almost inherently when you arrive on campus. I mean, these kids are hard workers and they're used to working. But when you get there, I think sometimes they forget that everything that Texas accomplished earlier in the decade was because of a lot of the hard work that went into it. I mean, I'm not speaking idly. Last year, even some of the players and coaches said there was an entitlement to success that had not been earned for this particular crop of players. And it's difficult to watch the game against Oklahoma and not sense that. When you watch the way the players responded after they got down, early in the first, then big in the first, and then obviously massively in the second quarter, they kind of doodle-bugged a little bit, which is the term I use when you kind of roll up a little bit, and that's kind of what I saw. They seemed to wilt a little bit, and that would kind of play to the point I was just talking about. I can't think of a single program in any sport at any school in the country that has had sustained success for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Everything comes in cycles, even when the head coach stays the same a lot of times, because it's just difficult. You have to have some sort of motivating factor. You have to have an adversity to rekindle your fire to work. And 10, 12, 13 years of continued brilliant success, I don't know if I would say that's a powerful motivator for kids to really get in there and grind every day. Sometimes you have to be bad in order to be good again.
Well, and then you got the Nick Saban, who just stays ticked off at the world all the time, and I don't know if you can sustain that kind of intensity all the time, and obviously I don't think Mac can.
Well, and I think Gary Patterson at TCU is the same way. And for anyone who's worked with, alongside, or at least knows the Gary Patterson style very well, he's a master motivator because he will always find the slight somewhere. He will always find a way to tell kids they don't respect you for this, or they don't believe in you for this, and so on and so such. And that will work. But from time to time, that will burn kids out. I mean, even TCU, as good as they've been over the past decade, they had a down year. And it was uncommon for them, but they definitely had a down year. And that was part of the recycling of the message. It just took some time to get the group motivated again. And Saban is, as you said, more or less cut from that cloth. I mean, I think we can all more or less agree Saban's a jerk, right? I mean, I don't think anyone's out there saying that they want to invite Saban to their Christmas party.
He's not Mr. Happy, no.
No, but it makes for a very effective head football coach. And one of the things that, I think it was Sports Illustrated wrote a big long article about Nick Saban not long ago, which I found fascinating. And in it talked about how, forget just what he is on the field and forget about, his recruiting system and all that, which is important, but his burning, unquenchable fire every day to win for the week. And he talks, and I'm sure a lot of coaches are this way, but I bet you Saban is ahead of the pack in it, that he doesn't sleep during football season, he doesn't eat during football season, he stresses about every single minute detail. He would stress about whether or not your socks are pulled up to an even height on both legs. I mean, and that is the way he processes the game right now. When he's 60, will he be that way? I don't know, but he is right now, and it's difficult to know. It's difficult to say, but it's also difficult to know. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's difficult to know if that's the level that Mac's at right now. And with the parity and the extraordinarily high level of competition in college football right now, it's very difficult to win if you're not at that point.
Okay, so how much trouble do you think Mac's in?
His run of success at Texas has bought him more time than anyone else. If you substituted almost any name in for his right now, he would absolutely be gone at the end of the season if he didn't finish strong. And there's a few guys that might even be just done now, which is almost impossible to think of in college football. Few guys get fired mid-season in college football. But at the same time, it will depend heavily on how the rest of the year plays out. If they win out and they go 10-2, then there will still be some discussions at the end of the year because no matter what you finish, you can't lose to Oklahoma like that. But I suspect he'll be around because I believe it's an expensive buyout for him to finish up there. But if they go 500 or below 500 the rest of the way, there's going to be some intense pressure. And I don't know how much it'll be from the public and how much of it will be from the administration, but there's going to be some pressure. And if they go below 500, I don't think I'd be the only one that would be surprised if there was someone different at the helm next year. Deservedly or not, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, if they struggle badly, or at least go average for the rest of the year.
It's college football in 2012. That's the way it works. The big game this weekend is, in my mind, nationwide, is Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M against LSU. We've seen Manziel just torch really, really bad defenses all year long. The one good defense he played was against Florida in Game 1. The Aggies still believed that if they'd had a ball game before the Florida game, they would have beaten Florida. What's your take on that? How do you think he's going to handle the kind of speed and athleticism that LSU is going to present when they play Saturday morning?
I don't think the speed and athleticism will be appreciably more than Florida, so I think it's probably a fair baseline test to say those are equitable opponents, so we can start there. Two, I think there's a lot of merit to say that if A&M had a game before Florida, that they very well could have won. It's difficult to argue with that because they had a freshman at quarterback playing his first ever collegiate football game against Florida. Whew, that's a tough play to start, so I think there's merit there too. And the third and most important thing about this particular matchup, and I was talking about this earlier this week with some other guys here around at the office, one of the reasons the spread has not always worked in the SEC is because if there's one thing the SEC can present, it is unbelievable, unparalleled athleticism and speed in the front front seven as a whole, but particularly the front four. They find defensive linemen they're barely human. They are so athletically gifted. So if you're going to run the spread where you commonly have, let's say, 4 guys or sometimes even 5 guys out wide, you're leaving 5 offensive linemen against 4 defensive linemen, and more times than not in the SEC, the offensive linemen lose those battles. So if you're going to run the spread, you have to have an elite line, a truly elite line that can handle that kind of pressure. A&M has that. They legitimately have one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in the country, especially at tackle with Matthews and Luke Jokel. They have a brilliant offensive line. So they can legitimately send 4 wide receivers, or even 5 wide receivers, which they do sometimes, out wide and let that offensive line go toe-to-toe with an LSU defensive line, and that's a battle that they can win. They won't win every time, but they can win that. And if they do, they can win that game as well, because I think the secondary talent at LSU, guys, the defensive backs are brilliant. The linebackers are brilliant. But if you can take that ridiculous front 4 out of the equation, that is a different-looking defense. And that's true with almost any SEC defense. So I'm not saying that A&M is necessarily going in as a favorite. I'm just saying that of all the spread teams in the SEC that have failed, some have been successful, that out of all the ones that have failed, A&M is different from them, and they could win this weekend.
You think they will?
I haven't decided yet. I would probably lean towards no, just because LSU is a more proven commodity right now. I mean, Les Miles is going to do some weird stuff. We know that. But their track record of success over the past couple years is much, much greater than A&M's. No matter which way you slice the bread, that's just the truth. So I'll go with the known commodity, but if A&M walks out with a win, I mean, I would not be surprised at all.
Okay, very good. All right, what are you guys going to see this week high school football-wise?
We're going way down to the Alamo City for Smith and Valley at Converse-Judson. Obviously, 2 super historical teams in San Antonio, which is going to be a lot of fun, but also 2 really good running backs as Smith and Valley introduces Lawrence Madison to the world. I mean, a lot of people know about him down there, but hopefully this will be his statewide coming out party. He's a lot of fun, 2,000-yard back, and he's built like a Mack truck, so he can hurt you. And then Converse-Judson, I believe it's Jarvian Williams is their kid, who also has a lot of talent. He's over 1,000 yards for the season now, so I can't say if it's high scoring or not, but I know either way it's going to be a lot of fun.
Good deal. And what's going on with the website this week?
Now we're working on the newsletter, the Extreme Access newsletter we put out every week for EA subscribers to the site. And I'll be interested to see where Greg Tepper, our typical columnist, where he decides to run with that, because I have a feeling it'll be Red River related. I'd be shocked if it wasn't. And because it's the topic du jour, it would seem to be a Mac Brown indicated thing as well. But Jake Shaw, our college writer, also had a college column this morning of which he touched on some of the college topics of the day. And with all the chaos going on in the college world right now, at least for the Texas schools, it's probably worth a read.
Outstanding. Hey, Travis, great talking to you every week. Good stuff. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope I didn't get fired after all the Mac Brown stuff and bagging on all these coaches in Texas schools. So we'll see. We'll see if you see me next week or not.
I think you're safe. Thanks a lot, Travis. We appreciate it. Travis Stewart from Dave Campbell's Texas Football and TexasFootball.com on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.